witness, please.
Thank you. The Commonwealth called James Mundell.
Yes, please. Ladies and gentlemen, the court officer is going to pass out notebooks to you, and I'll give you an instruction on notes once you've all have the notebooks.
So would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the cause now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may be seated.
Come right up.
I think you should watch your head when you sit down there, so if you might want to move away from that, closer here. Here you go. I think that's good.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
There's been a motion to sequester witnesses that I've allowed in the case. That means that until all the evidence is over, you can only be in the courtroom when you're testifying. You may not discuss your testimony with the other witnesses or allow them to discuss their testimony with you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've passed out notebooks to you in case you decide to take notes in this case. If you decide to take notes, I have a few instructions for you. First, the notes that you take are not your memory. They're merely an aid to your memory. I suggest that if you take notes, you do so sparingly. If you have your nose in a notebook, you're going to miss the trial. You may find notes helpful to remember times, dates, locations, measurements, terms, and the like. The notes will be taken from you at the end of every court day, kept in a safe place, unavailable to anybody else, returned the next day, and destroyed at the end of the trial. Do not use your notes to convince your fellow jurors of what the facts are, since the notes are not your memory, but merely an aid to your memory. If you decide not to take notes, of course, then do not do so, keeping in mind my instruction. If you do so, don't let it interfere with your concentration and your ability to observe the witnesses. Ms. McDougall, please.
Thank you. Good morning, sir. In a loud, clear voice, can you introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Jamie Mundell. I'm a 911 dispatcher with the Danvers Police.
And if you could spell your first and last name, sir.
First name is Jamie, Jamie. Last name is Mondalto, Mondalto.
Sir, how long have you been employed as a dispatcher for the Danvers
About
Police?
17 years.
And are you a civilian or a sworn officer?
I'm a civilian.
And what are your duties and responsibilities as a dispatcher for the Danvers Police?
I handle the incoming 911 calls and the business line calls, and I dispatch the cruisers after I take the call.
So could I ask you to just move this
Sure.
way a little and face the jury a little more as you
Yes.
speak so that they can see you?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mondalto, do you have a shift that you normally work?
Yes, I work 5 at night to 1 in the morning.
And about how many officers would be on duty for your particular shift?
5 officers.
Do you know about how big Danvers is?
I am not sure. I never thought of that.
As part of your duties and responsibilities, do you have to communicate with neighboring towns, the police departments for neighboring towns?
Yes.
And what are the neighboring towns for Danvers?
I have Middleton, Peabody, Topsfield, Salem, Beverly.
Sir, drawing your attention to October 22nd of 2013, were you working that regular 5 to 1 shift?
Yes.
And where are you located in the police station?
When you come in the front door, there's an officer at the front desk, and then there's a dispatch center behind the front desk.
And from does anyone else sit with you in the dispatch center normally?
Yes, there are 2 dispatchers on at a time.
Okay. Now, sir...
Don't talk in the courtroom. Don't talk in the courtroom. There's no exceptions. If you want to talk, there's a whole world out there. I don't want to have to say it again. No talking in the courtroom.
Sir, on the evening of October 22nd, did you receive a call regarding a Philip Chism?
Yes.
Do you know about what time you received the call?
About 6:30 p.m.
And who was the caller?
I believe it was a Diana Chism, the mother.
And just generally, what was the nature of her call?
She wanted to report that her son was missing or overdue at home.
And is that an unusual call for you to get?
No, we get calls from parents that their children haven't come home, and so we have them come into the station, and we ask them to bring a picture of their child and fill out a missing person report.
And did you do that with Mrs. Chism?
Yes.
And did she provide you with a date of birth and a description for her son, Philip?
Yes.
What do you do with that information?
I put that information out to the officers on patrol. so that they can start looking for the person. And I notify the officer at the front desk and the officer in charge, and then we take that information for a juvenile and enter it as a missing person into the computer right away.
And what effect, if you know, does it have to enter it into the computer? Who else can see it then?
That way surrounding towns, if they come across the person, when they run the person through the computer, they can see that person is a missing person, that we are looking for that person.
And in addition, sir, are there any malls either in the town of Danvers or right nearby?
Yes, there's the Liberty Tree Mall in Danvers and the North Shore Mall.
And based on your experience with missing teenagers, do you take any steps with respect to the two malls when you get a report of a missing teenager?
Yes, yeah, I call them all security and I let them know who we're looking for.
And to the best of your knowledge, sir, do the Danvers police have a Twitter page and a Facebook page?
Yes, and I notified the sergeant on duty that we should have his picture put on the Facebook so that people could get that in social media and know that we have a missing person.
And did you at any point that evening have occasion to see what was put up on Facebook or Twitter by the Danvers police?
Yes.
We can be seen at side order.
Sure. In your evidence.
Sir, could you please take a look at those four items and let me know if you recognize those postings?
Yes. Yeah, I recognize those as the Facebook that they put out, or the Twitter type of post to the media.
Is it in fact both Facebook and Twitter?
I'm not sure. I believe it is both of them, yeah. Okay. Facebook and Twitter, I believe.
I would ask if these be marked at this time, subject.
These marked for identification.
Thank you. Now, sir, from where you're located in the police station, can you see if someone's come into the station?
Yeah, there is a window there. Yeah, you can look through and see who's coming in through the front.
At some point, did you become aware of that Diana Chism had actually reported to the station?
Yeah, I believe they said that she'd come in to sign the paperwork.
And what are you able to do as a result of the paperwork being signed?
Well, with the juvenile, the person's already entered in as missing. So we have a section where we literally file the paperwork, but that's about...
It's really a formality with the juvenile, is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. And over the course of the rest of the evening, let me ask you this, did you leave at your regular time of 1 o'clock that night?
Yes.
Okay. Over the course of the next, say, 4 or 5 hours, did you continue to dispatch officers to various locations in Danvers?
Yes.
In addition to that, did you have occasion to call in additional officers?
Yes, we called, I believe it was the state police. I believe we let them know.
Okay. You called the state police, and at some point, did you have occasion to call in the next shift of officers ahead of time?
I believe Officer Frost called the next shift in. That's the house officer at the front desk. I don't recall calling in any other officer.
Okay. And did you have any involvement in calling in other personnel in addition to police officers that evening?
I don't believe I did. That might have been my partner's.
Okay. And you indicated there were 2 dispatchers
Yes.
working. Is that fair to say? Okay. I have nothing further, Your Honor, for this witness.
Any cross-examination? All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Commonwealth's next witness, please, Ms. McDougall. Ladies and gentlemen, we can take a recess at any time the jurors need it. If anyone needs a recess before 11 o'clock, just let us know. Otherwise, we'll take the morning recess at 11 o'clock.
Officer, if you could stop right here, turn and face the clerk.
Sir, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the cause now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated.
Good morning, sir. There's been a motion to sequester witnesses in the case, so until all the evidence in the trial is over, you may only be in court when you're testifying. You can't talk about your testimony with the other witnesses, or let them talk about theirs with you. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. In a loud, clear voice, can you introduce yourself to the jury?
Sure. My name is Lawrence Nestor. I'm an employee of the town of Topsfield for the Topsfield Police Department.
And sir, could you spell your first and last names, please?
Sure. It's Lawrence is the first name, and the last name is Nestor.
And sir, in fact, do you have two different roles for the town of Topsfield?
Yeah. Prior to us closing the dispatch center, I was emergency center operator and a reserve patrolman for the town.
And in your role, fair to say now Topsfield uses a regional 911 system?
Yes.
Back in October of 2013, was Topsfield responsible for its own dispatch?
It was.
And you were one of the dispatchers at that time?
Correct.
What shift did you work in October of 2013?
I was working on the 4 to 12 shift,
4 p.m. to 12 a.m.?
4 p.m. to 12 a.m.
And how many officers are working for the town of Topsfield during that time period?
We had one person who worked the desk, and you had 2 officers on the road.
Where is the Topsfield Police Station located?
It's on Boston Street, which is Route 1 in the town of Topsfield.
And using the fairgrounds as a landmark,
Yes.
where is the police station located with respect to the fairgrounds?
It's right across the street from the fairgrounds.
And on the night of October 22nd, were you aware of anything going on in the town nearby?
Yeah, within the dispatch center, we would monitor the radio traffic from the towns that are around us, and we were, heard Danvers was looking for a missing student for a better part of the night.
And at some point, did you hear other personnel being dispatched to Danvers?
I think it was must have been just about a half hour before I left for the night. The state police CPAC unit was called into the woods behind the Danvers High School.
And what concerns did that raise for you?
Objection.
As it relates to not the truth, but the state of mind induced in the witness as to the testimony that will follow, I'll allow it. But does counsel need to be heard, or do you have the reason in mind?
I just renew my objection.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this information is not offered for its truth, but as it relates to the state of mind of the witness, what he had heard for the questions that follow.
Sir, what was your concern when you heard State Police CPAC being dispatched to Danvers?
It means to us, it means that there's a dead body that they have to deal with.
And who were you concerned that body was at that time?
I believed it was the missing student from Danvers.
When you left, did you get off right around midnight that night?
I did. The other dispatcher came on at 12, and I, talked for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then I left at that point.
And what route do you take home?
I drive Route 1 south towards Danvers.
Can you describe Route 1 in that area south of the police station for us?
Sure. It's a 2-lane road. It's a 50-mile-an-hour road. It's just long and straight.
What's the lighting like?
Not very many street lights. There's no sidewalks or street lights. It's just a kind of a poorly lit section of road.
And is it a business area, a residential area?
From that stretch, it's primarily woods, and there's one farmhouse up on each side of Route 1 as you approach Danvers, so it's not populated.
And about how far, if you know, from the Topsfield police station, if you make your way down Route 1 south before you hit the Danvers line?
I believe it's a little over 2 miles.
And as you were driving away from the police station, did something catch your attention?
Yeah, it was as I was cresting the hill, right as you leave the station. I just saw out of my right side. I saw a black male walking along. He was walking north on the southbound side of the highway.
And where was he with respect to the highway?
He wasn't walking next to it, he was off, there's a section of woods and stone wall, he was off to the right, next to the wall.
And what, if anything, did you do as a result of seeing that?
It just looked out of place to me, so I just continued on. I went up over the hill, turned around, and came back. And as I came back, I just kind of glanced to my left, and I noticed that he was walking away from that one farmhouse, and he was continuing to walk along the stone wall on the off the highway as he was going northbound at that point.
Okay. And what, if anything, did you do then?
At that point, I called the station to let them know that it just didn't look right. There was something out of place. There was a guy walking along the wood line along Route 1.
And did you have any further involvement that night?
No.
I have nothing further for this witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Regan, did you have cross-examination?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, you testified that you saw him walking by the farmhouse, correct?
Yeah, it was close enough to the driveway where the driveway comes down onto Route 1 that I didn't realize if he was coming from the farmhouse or going to the farmhouse, so that's when I turned around to come back and saw that he was walking beyond it.
But you did not see him coming to or from the farmhouse?
No, not at all.
He was walking parallel to the road, but some distance in?
Yeah.
And so there's Route 1, the road,
Yep.
and then there's like a grassy kind of area.
Yeah.
And then is there a stone wall?
Yeah, I would call it like a wooded tree line and a stone wall that runs along the Route 1.
And he was between that stone wall and the road, but in?
He was more towards the wall than Route 1, if that's what you're asking.
But he wasn't on the other side of the wall from Route 1?
No.
No further questions, thank you.
Anything else? No. Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure thing.
Call us next witness, please.
Officer Neil Hebb.
Officer, if you could stop here, turn and face the clerk.
Sir, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the cause now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated.
Make yourself comfortable. Thank you, sir. Have a seat. Make yourself comfortable if you could, please. Good morning, sir. I've issued an order that witnesses only be in the courtroom when they're testifying until the evidence is over, and that they not talk about their testimony with other witnesses, so let other witnesses discuss their testimony with them. Thank you, sir. If you do, please.
Good morning, sir. In a loud, clear voice, can you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
Neil Hovey.
And how do you spell your first and last names?
Neil, N-E-A-L, Hovey, H-O-V-E-Y.
And, sir, how are you employed?
As a patrolman for the Topsfield Police Department.
How long have you been a patrolman for the town of Topsfield?
12 years, part-time, 5 years full-time.
And drawing your attention to October 22nd of 2013, were you scheduled to work that night?
The midnight going into the 23rd, yes.
Okay. Where were you earlier in the evening before you went into work?
I was at home.
And what city or town do you live in?
Danvers.
At some point, did you become aware of something that was going on in your town, Danvers?
Yes.
And how did you become aware of it?
When I arrived home, my daughter, that attends Danvers High School, said that she had seen on a social media site, a Facebook, that there was a missing 14-year-old.
And did she show you a picture, or did you have occasion to see a picture at any time?
No, I did not.
In addition to the information you got from your daughter and social media, did you receive any other information at the house regarding a missing teenager?
No description, just she said what his name was. We also received a reverse 911 call from the town of Danvers notifying us that there was a missing 14-year-old, and could you check your property to see if you see anything of unusual nature.
And did you do that?
Yes, we turned on the spotlights in the backyard. We opened up the door, we took a quick glance out, and we didn't see anything.
And at some point, when did you leave your house to go to work in Topsfield?
I'm not sure exactly, around 11:30, possibly.
When you arrived at the station, let me ask you this, how many other officers were working with you that early morning of October 23rd?
One other officer,
And who was that?
Officer Joseph DiBernardo.
When you arrived at the station, what, if anything, did you do to get ready for your shift?
When I arrived, I had learned that Danvers was extending their search, which I believe to be the missing 14 road, to the rail trail heading towards Topsfield.
And can you describe for us what the rail trail is?
The rail trail is it's a public way. It's a stone dust platform. It's through the woods. There's only natural light.
And what's its intended purpose?
For people, for our walking pathway.
And where does it extend, where does it cover?
From Danvers, it goes into Wenham and then into Topsfield.
So there is a end of the rail trail that is in Topsfield, is that fair to say?
It goes through Topsfield, and I believe it extends into Boxford.
Okay. And based on what you heard about the extent of the search coming out of Danvers, what, if anything, did you intend to do when you started working that evening, or early morning, I guess?
Well, as a concerned parent, I have children of my own, and the cruiser that I was assigned to has a thermal imaging camera on it. So I decided prior to my shift that I would go out and in the area of the rail trail in Topsfield, I would check that area and see if I could identify anything.
And did you ultimately end up doing that?
No, I never made it out of the driveway.
And why was that?
I received a phone call on my cell phone from the dispatcher of the 4 to 12 shift, and he had stated that CPAC was called.
And what did that mean to you?
To me, that meant that CPAC is usually only called in as the detective division by the state police assigned to the district attorney's office. Usually we call them in when there's a death of another or a serious crime is committed.
And at that point, based on what you knew, which of those options did you unfortunately think it was?
I had believed at that time that the search had ended, and I specifically said to the dispatcher, I can't believe a 14-year-old's life would be that bad that he would kill himself.
So that was sort of your working assumption at that time?
At that time it was.
And at that point, what did you go about doing in terms of working your shift?
I turned around in the driveway. I went back to the station, and we have housekeeping chores that we did, and I started doing some of those chores in the garage.
Okay. At some point, were you dispatched to respond to something?
Yes, I was.
And what was that?
There was a report that there was a black male walking northbound on Route 1 in the southbound lane.
And is there anything of concern to you as a Topsfield police officer about people walking on Route 1?
There's always a concern.
And can you explain that?
Well, it's just a two-lane road, not very well lit in certain areas. There's no sidewalk in the majority of the roadway. The speed of the vehicles, so we consider it not a safe place to walk.
And what type of action do you typically take with respect to pedestrians on Route 1?
We encourage them to either we'll give them a ride off the roadway or to find another path.
Now, when you got that report, what did you do?
I immediately got in my cruiser and came out of the police station driveway and then turned right, now going southbound on Route 1.
And do you know about what time this was that you got the call about someone walking on Route 1?
I believe the dispatch time was around 12:28 in the morning, or 28 past the hour.
So this probably goes without saying, but what was the lighting like out at 12:28 in the morning?
It was dark.
And when you left the station, did you know where your fellow officer, Officer DiBernardo, was?
He was with me at the station.
In the same cruiser?
No, in a different cruiser. We were in the garage together.
Okay, okay. And typically, for a call like that, would you both respond?
Yes.
Okay. As you pulled out, you said you made a right onto Route 1, is that correct?
Yes.
And how far did you travel approximately?
I would say approximately 0.2 of a mile.
Okay. And what caused you to stop at that 0.2 mile mark?
Well, as I was proceeding to the area of the dispatch area, we confirmed the area. They said Boston Street near Salem Road. When I was driving up the hill southbound, I at the last minute observed a black male that was at an indentation of the guardrail, and it was at the last minute.
And what did you?
It was too late to stop then, so I went a little beyond. I did a 3-point turn, and then I came back northbound in the northbound lane.
What type of a vehicle were you operating, Officer Hovey?
I was at a marked police cruiser,
Was it a sedan type or a larger vehicle?
a Ford sedan.
And when you came around, what did you have in terms of lights or any other notifications on your vehicle?
My blue emergency lights.
What was the purpose of that at that time?
Well, I had stopped in the middle of the roadway, so to alert any other motorists, and when I was exiting the motor vehicle for my own safety.
If I could just have a moment, Your Honor.
Sure,
May I approach this witness?
sure.
Showing you a photograph, Officer Hovey, do you recognize what that photograph depicts?
Yes, I do.
Does that photograph depict the area of Route 1 where you first made contact with the male?
Yes, it does.
I would ask this be marked as the first exhibit, Your Honor. No objection.
Admitted.
If I could just have a moment to speak to Ms. Regan, Your Honor.
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, the lawyers will sometimes ask to consult with each other just so that they can have a moment to see if there may be ways that they can just either come to an agreement on an issue or alert each other as to their intentions in an area of inquiry. And they do that to be efficient, and that's the only reason that that's going on. Thank you.
Your Honor, with counsel's permission, I believe there's a map I would ask to display to see if the witness, who would help the witness in assisting with her.
And this is by use as a chalk, you mean, as opposed to an evidence?
Correct.
All right. Any objection to that being used as a chalk? Okay, that may be yours.
And, sir, are you familiar, you've indicated you live in Danvers. You're familiar with these various locations in the town of Danvers, is that correct?
That is correct.
And I think you have a screen in front of you, if that would be easier for you. I could not see that from where you are, so. And drawing your attention to the star on the map, so you would agree with me that all of the areas depicted in the red outline are the town of Danvers, correct?
Yes.
And then there's a star to the north of that that appears to go over a river. Do you recognize that location?
If that is Route 1, then yes.
Okay. If I tell you the white line is Route 1 and the blue line is the Ipswich River, does that help orient you?
Yes.
Okay. And is that star essentially depict where you made contact with the male?
Yes.
And if we can now display the photograph that was just marked as Exhibit 1. And sir, I'm going to give you a pointer, and you may need, with the court's permission, to step down, because I'll tell you right now it will not work on the one behind you, but it will work on that one. And it's the green button. And you may be able to do it from where you are. Could you just indicate for the jury where you first made contact with the male on the side of Route 1?
You need to step down so you may do so.
Oh, I think my fault. The payments turn it on.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's why I have helpers. Is it on? Yeah.
So my encounter was right in that area.
Right in that area?
Yes.
Okay, and there's, correct me if I'm wrong, there's sort of a barrier. Is that a bridge?
Yeah, there's a barrier on both sides. It's a bridge that goes over the Ipswich River.
So was it just at the sort of beginning of the barrier or the bridge that you first made contact?
It was a little, it was maybe a little closer to halfway, but not quite halfway.
Okay. Thank you. The exhibit can come down.
And can you mark the chalk for identification
Still on.
as well, please?
Um,
We don't have to do it right now if you don't need, but at some point the chalk will mark for identification.
yes. Okay. Officer Hovey, I think I got a little bit ahead of us, but you indicated you did a three-point turn and you pulled over. What did the male do when you pulled over?
When I pulled over, he stopped as well.
Okay. And he's now on the other side of the highway from you?
Yeah, that is correct.
Two-lane highway, though it may be.
Two-lane, yes. He's in the south lane, I'm in the northbound.
Okay. And did you get out of your cruiser?
Yes, I did.
Where did you go?
When it was safe, I crossed the street to the southbound lane.
I'm going to ask you if you could project your voice up louder, if you could, please, officer.
Yes, sir, sorry.
Thank you.
As you approached the male, were you able to see what he was wearing?
As I approached, yes.
What was he wearing?
He had a turquoise, full-zippered, hooded sweatshirt, a black shirt, black shorts, knee-high length socks. He had blue Adidas sneakers with a greenish, yellowish stripe on the sneakers, and he also had a red and black nylon backpack, sort of a satchel, pull-string backpack.
At that point, could you see whether there was anything around his neck?
Around his neck, when I got closer, I could see there was pulled down, there was a clump of clothing that we learned to be a ski mask.
And what was the temperature like, if you recall, that evening?
It was cool. I believe it was 47 degrees.
And when you approached the male, in what direction was he looking?
He was facing northbound.
Continuing to look up Route 1?
Yes,
Essentially looking the point of view of the person who took that picture?
that is correct.
Okay. And where were you with respect to him? Where did you position yourself?
To his right side.
So you're essentially talking to his right shoulder and his profile, is that fair to say?
Yes, about, 4 or 5 feet away from him.
And what, if any, communication did you have with him at that time?
I asked him where he was going.
And what did he tell you?
He said nowhere.
And what else did you ask him?
I then asked him where he was coming from, and he stated Tennessee.
And based on the condition of his clothing, did it appear to you he'd been out for a long time?
And no, it did not.
What other further questions did you ask him at that time?
I again asked him, because those were not typical responses, I again asked him where he was going, and he again stated nowhere.
And what was the lighting like in the area where you were making contact with this male at this time?
It was dark.
Were you able to see his face?
I was able to see, yes, I was.
Let me ask you this, sir, the person that you made contact with on the side of Route 1 that early morning, do you see that person in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Could you please point him out and describe something he's wearing?
He has a black jacket on, he has glasses on, a white shirt, and a tie.
May the record reflect identification of the defendant.
With no objection, it may.
Now, sir, at some point had Officer DiBernardo arrived?
Yes.
And did he join in your conversation with the defendant?
Yes, he did.
Can you just describe what any further conversation you had with the defendant first, specifically yourself?
I asked him where he lived, and he stated he has no address.
Did you ask him anything at that time about who he was?
I asked him if he had an ID on him.
And what did he tell you?
No.
In your earshot, Officer DiBernardo ask him anything?
When Officer DiBernardo arrived, he asked him to take his hands out of his pockets.
And which pockets were his hands in?
In his sweatshirt pocket.
Okay. And did the defendant respond?
Yes, he did.
Meaning he took his hands out of his pockets?
Yes.
Okay. And did Officer DiBernardo ask him anything else?
He asked him what was in the backpack.
How big of a backpack was it, meaning how full?
It was full in nature.
Okay. And what did the defendant say when Officer DiBernardo asked him what was in the backpack?
He stated survival gear.
At that point, sir, what did you do with respect to the defendant?
At that point, my partner took the backpack from the party.
Okay. And did you do anything ultimately with respect to the defendant's person?
After that, we, because of the dark natures of the road, we escorted them across the street to a safer location for us between the two police cruisers.
Okay. And what was safer about that location between the two police cruisers?
Well, we had the emergency lighting, we had the protection of the, police cars.
Okay. And what, if anything, did you do with respect to the defendant when you reached the other side of the road?
We had him stand at the trunk of the first police cruiser, my police cruiser, between the two cars.
Okay. At the trunk of your cruiser before the hood of Officer DiBernardo's cruiser?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened next?
At that time, I asked him to remove the contents from his pockets and put them on the trunk of my cruiser.
And did he do that?
Yes, he did.
And when you say pockets, which pockets are we talking about?
The pockets of his shorts.
And had you, how did you know that there was anything in the pockets of his shorts?
On the other side of the street, I did a pat frisk of his front left and right pockets.
And can you just explain to the jury what a pat frisk is?
A pat frisk is that we look for dangerous weapons for an area that we can't visibly see because of either clothing obstructions or lighting, and it was extremely dark that evening.
So what
So we just gently touched the area.
Okay. And what had you felt when you touched the area of the defendant's short pockets?
In the left front pocket, it was a hard plastic, similar to an identification card or a credit card. It was a hard piece of plastic.
And in the other pocket, what did you feel?
There was a oblong object, hard oblong object in the right pocket.
And ultimately, when the defendant took the things out of his pocket on the hood of Officer DiBernardo's cruiser, rather, what did those objects prove to be?
What was the hard plastic objects? There was 2 Massachusetts driver's licenses, there was credit cards, and there was an insurance card. In the other pocket was the hard oblong object, turned out to be a rock.
If I could just have one moment, huh?
Sure. Members of the jury, in addition to keeping in mind, letting me know at any point that you need a recess and feeling free to stand during the testimony at any point over there, I'd also ask you to let us know, raise your hand, just let us know if you're having difficulty hearing anything. It's important that you hear every bit of the testimony.
Officer Hovey handing you some items. Do you recognize those items?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those items to be?
It was the 2 Massachusetts driver's licenses, and the credit cards and the insurance cards.
And are those the cards and identifications that you found in the defendant's pocket the early morning of October 23rd?
Yes, it is.
And whose Massachusetts identification and driver's license are those?
Colleen Ritzer.
At that time, sir, did that name have any meaning to you?
No, it did not.
I would ask these be marked as the next exhibit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
Okay.
Admitted.
Exhibit 2.
When those items came out of the defendant's pocket, what, if anything, did you or Officer DiBernardo ask him?
After I examined the IDs, I looked at the party and I asked him, "What is your name?"
And what did he tell you?
Philip Chism.
And did that name have any significance to you?
Yes, it did.
How did you recognize that name?
By what my daughter had told me before I left for work.
You knew that to be the missing teen out of Danvers.
That is correct.
Did that knowledge in any way change the encounter you were having with the defendant?
Well, I went from concern for my own safety to almost a parent mode where I really couldn't believe, I was in disbelief that I had found the missing 14-year-old and that I was able to bring a 14-year-old home safely to his parents.
And what steps did you take in order to go about making that happen at that time?
At that time, we asked him a few more questions, but then my partner said to him, "Why don't you get warm and sit in the back seat of the cruiser, and we're going to bring you to the police station."
And when you say you asked a few more questions, what were those questions about?
We asked him where he got these identifications.
And what did he tell you?
He stated he found them.
Did one of you ask him further questions about that?
We both did. I asked him where he found them, and he stated Stop and Shop.
Do you know where the closest Stop and Shop is to where you stopped him?
It's in Danvers, about 3 miles away.
And was there any further questioning about that?
My partner asked him which Stop and Shop, and he said, I do not know.
And now, sir, I'm handing you another item. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that as?
This was the rock that was in his right pocket.
So identifications and credit cards in the left pocket and rock in the right pocket?
That is correct.
I would ask that be marked as the next exhibit.
Should it read somewhere?
Officer Hovey, after the conversation about the identifications coming from Stop and Shop, was there any further conversation with the defendant at the roadside?
I asked him where he got these, and he said from her car.
And was there further questioning?
It open so I could see the inside of the contents.
And when you say a drawstring, is it like the kind of backpack you get for running a race, or you get as a, can't think of the word, but like a favor for running a race or something?
Yes, it was a nylon satchel, yes.
And as you opened it, what was the first item that you were able to see and retrieve?
A white wallet.
And what kind of a wallet was it?
More of a purse type white wallet.
Did it appear female? I'm not asking you the brand, I promise. Did it appear female?
Female, yes.
Wallet? Okay. And did you notice anything about the condition of the wallet?
Nothing out of the ordinary.
What, if anything, did you do at that time with respect to the wallet?
I placed that on the counter.
Okay. What was the next thing that you did?
There was a multicolored, actually Vera Bradley, soft zippered case that I removed. Then there was a white and a blue with white stripe Nike shirt, athletic shirt that was specifically sized large. It said 14 to 16 on it. There was a sheer underwear in the color of like bluish greenish color. There was 2 Camelback water bottles, a set of keys. There was 2 rolls of 2-inch tape, one roll being black and white, the other roll being red and like a duct tape, similar to duct tape. There was a set of keys. There was a white towel. There was a flashlight that was orange and black. There was what I would consider a scuba diving knife that was in a sheath.
Was it in any kind of packaging?
No, it was like it goes around your waist, so it had a sheath, and the knife was inside the sheath.
And as you removed each of these items from the bag, where did you place them?
Placed them on the counter.
And and were there other sort of miscellaneous items in the bag as well?
Yes, there was.
What kinds of things were they?
There was miscellaneous papers and other contents.
And once the bag was emptied, what did you do next?
At that time, I opened up the white purse, the white wallet.
That first item you had removed?
Yes.
And when you opened that, what did you observe?
I observed a box cutter, an aluminum steel colored traditional box cutter.
And what, if anything, did you notice about the condition of the box cutter?
That the blade was still protruding out, and it had a reddish, brownish colored substance on the box cutter.
And as you observed that, what, if anything, did you do?
Then I asked him, whose blood is this?
And when you... And when you say you asked him, who did you ask?
I asked the defendant.
And how did he respond?
He said, it's the girls.
Sure.
When you asked the defendant whose blood is this, where was the box cutter?
In the wallet.
So had you picked it up or done anything to display it to him at that time?
No, I had the wallet in my hand, and the box cutter was in the wallet.
Okay. And after he said it's the girls, what, if anything, did you do?
We stopped everything.
And did you remain in the room at that time?
At that time, my partner read him his Miranda rights.
And where did you go?
I stayed there for that process.
And once that process was complete, what did you do?
Then I left the room and went into the dispatch area
And what was your purpose in doing that?
to call Danvers Police and tell them what we had found.
And at some point, how long were you in the other room communicating with dispatch?
2 or 3 minutes.
When you returned to the room, did you have an opportunity to make any further observations of the defendant's person or the condition of his clothing?
My partner brought to my attention 2 pieces of clothing.
And what were those 2 pieces of clothing?
The jacket that he was wearing, the sweatshirt that he was wearing, and the sneakers.
And what did you notice about the jacket and the sneaker, or the sweatshirt and the sneakers?
At that time, my partner had taken those 2 objects away from the defendant. And then he pointed out to me the similar brown, reddish stains that were on the jacket, and also the same similar stains on the sneakers.
And when you say similar, do you mean similar to those on the box cutter?
Yes.
If I could just have a moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
Showing you an item, Officer Hubby, do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
And I'm going to suggest you use the gloves to handle it, but I'm going to tell you, I could barely get them on my hands, so you might not be able to, but if you want to just use them to, if you could just hold that up and let us know how you recognize it. Oh, I think we have bigger ones.
This was the backpack that he was wearing.
Okay. And that's the backpack he was wearing when you first encountered him on Route 1, and then you inventoried at the station, is that correct?
That is correct.
It is at an essentially the same condition it was in when you saw it on the night of, or the early morning of October 23rd.
Yes, it is.
I'd ask this be marked as the next exhibit, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, once this exhibit is marked, we're going to excuse you for the morning recess, and I'll just speak to counsel for a moment after the jurors excused. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to take a recess. We're going to hope that we can have you back in the courtroom no later than 11:20. If you need more time, take the time you need. If you're ready earlier than that, let the court officers know. Don't discuss the case in any way, even if it seems the most innocuous, minor matter. Don't discuss anything about the courtroom during the recess. And the first thing I'll do when you come out is to make sure you follow those instructions. Jurors are excused. Court will remain in session.
All rise. Jurors, if you leave your notebooks right on the seat.
Already addressed the voluntariness issues. There's a right at any point in time, as you know, as to a voluntariness issue becoming an issue at trial. And is there anything that you want to proffer at this time as opposed to reserve on whether or not a humane practice instruction should be given right now?
I would reserve on that. I was also making clear on the record our objections based on the failure to contact his parents. I think our other objections are preserved as part of the motion, but I thought it was necessary to do that. And I ask that that objection be preserved as this continues.
I will give a continuing objection on that issue, and the humane practice issue, there not being a proffer at this time, can be raised at any point in time through request of voir dire or proffer. All right, let's see if we can reconvene no later than 11:20 if possible. Court will be in recess.
All right.